Good morning and welcome to A News. I'm Aliyah Aziz, and here are the top stories. U.S. President Donald Trump wants to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin to ensure end of war in Ukraine. Germany mourns the victims of a deadly knife attack that left 2 people dead. Secret files on the assassinations of John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King are declassified. U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed his determination to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the nearly 3-year conflict in Ukraine. Addressing global leaders at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump emphasized the urgency of securing peace.
Speaking via video link from Washington, D.C., President Donald Trump told global leaders in Davos on Thursday that he hopes to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin soon to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. He lamented the devastating human toll, describing the ongoing conflict as horrible.
One thing very important, I really would like to be able to meet with President Putin soon and get that war ended. And that's not from the standpoint of economy or anything else. It's from the standpoint of millions of lives are being wasted.
President Trump also highlighted the potential role of China in the peace process, expressing optimism about U.S.-China relations and suggesting that Beijing could use its influence over Moscow to help end the conflict.
But we always had a great relationship, I would say, and we look forward to doing very well with China and getting along with China. Hopefully China can help us stop the war with, in particular, Russia, Ukraine. They have a great deal of power over that situation.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stressed the necessity of U.S. military involvement for any effective peacekeeping force. In an interview with Bloomberg News, Zelensky called for stronger international guarantees, expressing concern that a ceasefire could allow Russia to regroup militarily. The Ukrainian leader also mentioned ongoing efforts to engage China in peace talks, but admitted frustration over limited communication with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Moscow rejected the idea of NATO countries sending peacekeeping troops to Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire in the war with Russia, saying such a move would threaten to cause an uncontrollable escalation. Russia says it is open to a dialogue with U.S. President Donald Trump, who has said he intends to bring a swift end to the war.
The EU is exploring energy and military deals with the USA to avert potential tariffs from President Donald Trump. Speaking at Davos, Valdis Dombrovskis outlined the EU's approach to tackling trade challenges and fostering cooperation.
The EU is considering energy and military purchases from the United States to address tariff threats made by President Donald Trump.
So we're seeking alternative suppliers, and US is now our largest LNG supplier, supplying more than half of our LNG. And actually Europe is the largest destination of US LNG. So we had a good cooperation over the last couple of years, and from our side we are ready to see how to further that.
President Trump has frequently criticized the trade imbalance between the EU and the US, suggesting tariffs or increased US exports, including liquefied natural gas. European Commission Executive Vice President Valdis Dombrovskis emphasized that Europe will defend its interests.
Well, we are ready to defend our interests and rights if it becomes necessary. You remember from the first Trump administration when they introduced the tariffs against European steel and aluminum, we responded in a proportionate way. So we are ready to defend our interests, but first and foremost we want to engage with the US administration.
Valdis Dombrovskis highlighted Europe's willingness to build on its recent cooperation with the US. The EU is also discussing military spending as part of efforts to enhance its defense capabilities against Russia, with cooperation within NATO remaining significant.
Thousands gathered in the southern German town of Schaffensburg to mourn the victims of a deadly knife attack that left 2 people dead, including a young boy and another child injured.
Around 3,000 people gathered in the southern German town of Aschaffenburg on Thursday to mourn the victims of a knife attack. A 41-year-old German man and a 2-year-old boy of Moroccan descent were killed, while a 2-year-old Syrian girl was injured in the attack on Wednesday. Mourners observed a moment of silence and placed candles and flowers at a memorial in the park where the attack occurred.
The boy also lived in my neighborhood, and I used to see him from time to time, and he was full of life and full of joy. It's sick. I have no words.
Khalid Melek, chairman of the Islamic Cultural Association in Aschaffenburg, said the large turnout provided some comfort.
This is definitely comforting. That's also something I take away for the family, especially for the mother, because there are so many people here. It's incredible. It shows our cohesion in this country.
The suspect, a 28-year-old man from Afghanistan, was brought before a judge on Thursday. He had a history of violent behaviour and was undergoing psychiatric treatment. Although his asylum process had been closed and he had agreed to voluntarily leave Germany in December, he remained in the country under treatment. The stabbings are part of a string of violent attacks in Germany that have raised concerns over security and migration ahead of parliamentary elections on February 23rd.
Massive wildfires continue to devastate north of Los Angeles, with thousands of people forced to evacuate as flames grow uncontrollably. California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a $2.5 billion relief package to aid the fire-ravaged region.
A new wildfire, the Hughes Fire, broke out north of Los Angeles on Thursday, prompting mandatory evacuations for over 31,000 people. Firefighters are battling the blaze in difficult conditions, with high winds and low humidity adding to the challenge. While containment efforts have increased to 24%, authorities warn that strong winds could push the fire further into nearby areas. At the same time, the Eaton and Palisades fires continue to burn in the metropolitan area, with both fires now burning for 17 days. These fires have killed 28 people and damaged or destroyed nearly 16,000 structures. Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a $2.5 billion relief package aimed at supporting recovery efforts, but billions more in federal aid will be needed, as experts estimate the total damage could exceed $250 billion. While some rain is expected this weekend, it may bring further risks, including mudslides in fire-affected areas, raising concerns about further damage.
Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev is urging major countries to unite in addressing climate change, which disproportionately affects the world's most vulnerable nations. In an exclusive interview with CGTN, he shared Azerbaijan's vision for a greener future and stressed the importance of international cooperation and innovative technologies. Here's more.
Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev has stressed the need for major countries to make consolidated efforts to address the urgent challenges of climate change, which he said posed an existential threat to many vulnerable nations around the world. In an exclusive interview with the China Global Television Network on the sidelines of the 2025 World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland, Aliyev talked of widespread dismay over the US pulling out of the accord, particularly from the countries facing the gravest climate threats. He noted that Azerbaijan has been actively pushing for greater climate action, highlighted by the 29th session of the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change last year.
Actually, when we became deeply involved in the issues related to climate change, we've seen that there is a big level of disappointment in the countries which have existential threat with respect to climate change. We all suffer from that, including Azerbaijan. But there are countries, especially small island states, which face existential threat. And their case sometimes was not put on the center of agenda. It is obvious that without a consolidated approach of big actors, it will be difficult to support those countries, and those countries who don't have financial resources to address climatic issues.
Further underlining the efforts Azerbaijan is taking towards a more green and sustainable future, Aliyev described the country's clear, clean energy targets for the coming years and said he welcomed investment to meet these goals. Azerbaijan's leader also noted that Chinese technologies are playing a big role in the transition.
Our immediate target by 2027 is to have 2 gigawatt of solar and wind, and by 2030, 6 gigawatt. And that will be kind of a revolution in energy mix in Azerbaijan. And I'd like also to say that the investors, which are investing foreign companies in these projects, including local companies from Azerbaijan, they use Chinese technology. So solar panels are produced in China. Now our team is working on storage capacity. And we found out that the batteries, the best batteries, are in China.
President Aliyev added that, through international collaboration and the adoption of innovative technologies, Azerbaijan hopes to secure a sustainable future and inspire the world to find ways of addressing the climate crisis.
Syria's de facto leader, Ahmed al-Shara, says that his country is prepared to welcome UN forces into the UN-established buffer zone with Israel. Al-Shara added that Syria has informed the United Nations of its adherence of the 1974 agreement, signaling its readiness to accommodate UN forces in the buffer zone, provide protection, and facilitate their deployment. He told Turkish channel Al Haber that Israel is sought to advance into Syria due to Iranian militias and Hezbollah, but with Syria's liberation, that pretext no longer exists. Israel forces are present near the buffer zone primarily to monitor and respond to the threats from Iranian militias and Hezbollah operating in Syria. These groups are considered hostile by Israel, and their activities near the border, according to Israel's authorities, have prompted security measures, including airstrikes and heightened military presence.
I believe that Syria today has just come out of an exhausting war, and there are many diplomatic means. And we have spoken to a lot of countries on the issue, including Recep Tayyip Erdogan, as well as all the Arab countries and all the Western countries, and there is a consensus against an Israeli advance. We are using legal methods during this time. We have sent a letter to the United Nations where we mentioned we are committed to the 1974 agreement and are ready to receive the United Nations forces to be in the buffer zone between us and Israel, and are ready to protect these forces and deliver them to their official positions.
Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud made his first visit to Lebanon in 15 years. During his visit, he met with Lebanon's new leadership, emphasizing the need for reforms to address the country's deepening financial crisis since 2019. The visit comes amid significant political shifts, particularly after Hezbollah's defeat in last year's war with Israel and changes in Syria's leadership. Prince Faisal assured Lebanon's leaders that Saudi Arabia remains committed to the country's recovery, urging decisive action to move forward. Palestinians who returned to what's left of their homes after ceasefire reached between Israel and Hamas are shocked with the flattened view of their land. Lack of food and water has become a serious issue for the displaced, and they demand to speed up the reconstruction.
Muhammad Badr, who is 62-year-old, his wife Nidal, and their 10 children, went back to the rubble of their home in Jabalia with the hope to restart their life after 15 months of war. Surrounded by destruction as they sat around a fire trying to fight the cold, Badr and his family spoke about their struggle to find anything to eat, as well as about the total lack of clean water necessary for hydration and personal hygiene.
They are talking about a truce, a ceasefire, and the delivery of aid. It's been 3 days since we came back. We can't find water to drink. We can't find covers to keep our children warm. We depend on bonfire all night. Wish to have some wood for the bonfire. We use plastic, which causes disease.
Badr finds not being able to provide for his family and keep them warm undignifying, as his wife described how difficult it is to navigate Gaza's streets, filled by the stench of human remains still trapped under the rubble.
I was shocked. There is no house standing. It is treason. There is nothing left. You cannot walk in the streets. Houses collapsed on top of each other. You get lost. You don't know if this is your home or not.
As families displaced by conflict returned to Gaza City, rows of tents were being set up to host them. Preparing a tent for his children, Palestinian resident of Gaza City who lost his 5-story home, Wael Jundia, described the harsh reality faced by displaced families.
This tent barely fits 2 people, and I have 8 family members. And every child of mine has 5, 6, or 7 members. I used to have a house that consisted of 5 floors. It was completely lost. And now, after being patient and homeless for a year and a half, I live in a tent. Where is the life we dreamt of?
Our people will suffer. They already suffered from the destruction, bombardment, and fear caused by the occupation. And now, they will suffer from a tragic displacement in tents. The tents do not protect from the cold or summer's heat. The situation is not habitable, but this is what's available now.
A ceasefire between Israel and Hamas took effect on January 19th, ending 15 months of war that has demolished the Gaza Strip. However, the dire situation continues for the people who pay the price of the war.
Representatives of Reunion Island who were in Azerbaijan to participate in the conference Reunion's Independence, View on France's Colonial Legacy and Path to Sovereignty have been detained by French security forces. The representatives transiting through France were detained at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris on their way back to their country. Media reports indicate that the French Special Services inquired about the reasons for their visit to Azerbaijan, details of their cooperation with the Baku Initiative Group, and the discussions held in Baku. They were released after several hours of detention. The United Nations is appealing for $910 million as it tackles humanitarian crisis in northeast Nigeria, particularly Borno State. The region has been impacted by Boko Haram insurgency since 2009 and major flooding in 2024, leaving millions in need. Ajik Mangut reports from Abuja.
The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, or UN OCHA, says 7.8 million women, men and children across Borno, Adamawa and Yobe need humanitarian assistance. They are the 3 most affected states by the Boko Haram insurgency. UN OCHA says over 1.8 million of these people have been forced to flee their homes and are internally displaced as a result of the prolonged violence. It adds that close to 1.4 million people have returned to their communities but lack access to essential services and livelihoods, while about 4.6 million are living in host communities facing the consequences of the conflict. The UN Humanitarian Agency says the 2025 funding appeal is aimed at helping 3.6 million of those in need. Borno State, the epicenter of the Boko Haram insurgency, has also had to deal with a dam breaking, leading to one of the worst floods the country has faced. The insecurity, coupled with the flooding, has resulted in low food production. Many farmers fear going to their farms because of attacks by terrorists. Additionally, Nigeria is currently going through tough economic times, characterized by high inflation and soaring costs of food and transportation that have further impoverished millions and led to hunger and malnutrition, particularly in the northeast. Economic reforms by Nigeria's government, which include a removal of subsidies on imported fuel, have contributed to the current economic challenge. But the government says they are necessary for putting the economy on a stronger path to growth. The UN says Nigeria, local organizations, donors, and the international community need to continue showing their commitment to supporting the affected people in northeast Nigeria. The 2025 humanitarian response appeal for Nigeria is said to be the most expensive humanitarian crisis in West and Central Africa. After 16 years of the Boko Haram conflict, the UN has warned that Nigeria's northeast risks being a forgotten crisis due to a global shift to other emergencies like those in Gaza, Sudan, and Ukraine. Also, the announcement by US President Donald Trump to withdraw from the World Health Organization is raising fears about funding for the organization's response to health needs across the world. The US is one of the biggest donors to the organization. In the meantime, Nigerian authorities say they will continue carrying out air and land operations in their efforts to win the war against the Boko Haram insurgency and other terrorist groups. Ajak Mangut for A News in Abuja.
U.S. President Donald Trump signed an order to declassify government files related to the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. This move follows Trump's earlier promise to release classified information regarding these high-profile deaths. Trump had initially pushed to release documents related to JFK's assassination in 2017 and 2021, but faced pressure from agencies like the CIA and FBI to keep certain files secret. The JFK assassination, in particular, remains a source of controversy in the U.S., with many doubting the conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has publicly stated his belief that the CIA was involved in his uncle's death, although the agency denies this.
Okay. Thank you. That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades.
That's all for now, but don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to A News for more exclusive updates. We'll be back soon.